And an assurance from the Maharashtra Chief Minister has brought a huge sigh of relief to restaurant owners today after a meeting that lasted through most of the day. The Chief Minister's office put out a tweet, and the restaurant associations as well put out this communication that they are all set to reopen from the first week of October. The final guidelines are still being put in place. The final date also has to be still put in place, but it will come as a huge relief to restaurants and these associations that have really been reeling under shock since March this year when the first lockdown hit. On that note, we are just a few days away from the Unlock 4.0 phase officially ending, and we can expect sooner or later, maybe the next 48 hours, a fresh set of guidelines of what happens post 1st October. So to quickly recap for you before I move ahead on what all has been allowed so far. In the last a part of the unlock, that is Unlock 4.0, schools were allowed to hold some sort of classes just for the students between 9th and 12th standard. They could go to classes for some time. So far, gyms have been opened, salons, malls, yoga centers, etc. All of this with social distancing, of course. Public transport, major public transport in cities like Mumbai are still quite few and far in between. Train services have not been opened fully, but metro services were allowed to open last time. So what comes next is question number one. Question number two is, how do we do this carefully? Because remember, even as we're unlocking, cases are also going on increasing. We've crossed the 60 lakh mark now. Speaking to me on this subject this evening is Dr. Ramanan Laxminarayan, Director at the CDDEP, that's the Center for Disease Dynamics, Economics and Policy. I'm also pleased to speak with Riyaaz Amlani, CEO and MD of Impresario Restaurants, and Gurbaxish Kohli, who's the Vice President of the Federation of Hotel and Restaurants Association of India. Welcome to all of you, and thank you for speaking with us. Riyaaz, let me get your take first on how crucial it is that restaurants really open, and why is it? Because restaurants have been open for in-dining in other parts of the country apart from Maharashtra. Have you seen a lot of people actually come in? And is that why this is coming as a sense of relief?
Yes, we are very, very happy that the Maharashtra government has finally decided to let restaurants open up. It's been over 6 months now that restaurants have been shut. It's been a very, very painful time for everybody in the restaurant business and everybody employed in the restaurant business, and the millions who rely on restaurants for their livelihood, whether directly or through ancillary businesses. All of Bombay has opened up, and besides cinemas and restaurants, very few other businesses have not been allowed to open up. So it is really, really, it's a really great feeling, and with cautious optimism that we welcome the CM's decision to allow dining in restaurants. We've been prepared for a while now. We've seen business in tier 2 cities really, really booming. Places like Chandigarh, Indore, Amritsar, Ludhiana, we've seen business almost at 80% of pre-COVID levels. In cities like Delhi, we're looking at about 35 to 40% so far. Karnataka is reporting about 30% of pre-COVID business levels. So we're very excited that we'll finally be allowed to operate in Maharashtra.
Mr. Kohli, how do you look at it? Is it going to be a challenge to maintain the social distancing norms? A lot of restaurants, especially in the western region in Maharashtra, sometimes are in very tiny spaces. You are going to have to maintain very close scrutiny to make sure that these don't become the next hotspots.
Yes, thank you, firstly, and good evening to everyone. Yes, it's a catch-22 situation. Now, we must not look at it with just sheer numbers, or it's not a formula that you can apply everywhere. So that's why I'm very happy that when this decision was taken, there was no cap to the capacities put. because as you said rightly, every restaurant has got its own space, and there are smaller ones, there are bigger ones. So if you follow the social distancing norm, that's 6 feet between each table. A smaller 20-seater restaurant their capacity may drop to 10%. The larger one may be 30%. The much more fine dine ones, more luxurious ones, maybe 50%. So it's not something that like a thumb rule we can establish that there'll be a 50% or 30% or 40%. Regarding the new, if you're saying that this is going to be the next hotspot, well, I don't understand how restaurants are going to be the next hotspot with 6 feet of difference between them, where aviation is thrown open, where you're nudging shoulders with, and your elbows with the person right next door. There is no social distancing there. If you go in a bus or in a train, have you ever seen the lines? There's no social distancing there. And if that's not become the hotspot, then I don't think restaurants will become the hotspot.
Okay. No, that's a fair point, Mr. Kohli. The only, I think, I would point out difference between sitting in a flight and sitting in a restaurant is, in a flight, you have the mask as well as the face shield. There's no food on board. I'm not saying restaurants will become the new hotspot, but it is, a challenge, I think, for policymakers to make sure you have businesses running as well as have a control over the virus. And this is where Dr. Ramanan comes in. And I think this is a crucial part of the discussion, Dr. Ramanan. How do you look at this? Because these businesses are dying. For the restaurant business, a large portion of these businesses are in the unorganized sector. There are some estimates that maybe 33% of the restaurants may just never recover and may never reopen again. So there is no question on whether we should unlock. The question is how? Do we have a clear picture now?
So, Tamanna, this is a really tough question. I certainly feel for all the restaurant owners, no question. This is something which is such a tragedy for them in terms of businesses that they've built over many years. And there's also a public, like myself, who would like to go to restaurants. It's not like people are, trying to sit at home. People would like to go out. The question is how you balance the risk. Just last week, I normally am in New Delhi. I'm there in Princeton today. And I've been observing how here restaurants are opening up or have opened up, but while following this norm of outside better than inside. All inside dining is stopped, but the cities have worked with the restaurant owners to help bring the tables onto the sidewalk, onto the road, try to block off the road. I think we need to be a little more creative. Now, this restaurant industry in Princeton, New Jersey is back in full form, for the most part, because they have worked with the city and the citizens to try to find a formula that works. Without question, inside dining with masks off and people even 6 foot apart is a recipe for some difficulty. Let me be quite clear. All our evidence points to the fact that indoor spaces are not good, especially if you don't have a mask on. So, as you said, the comparison with airlines is not quite valid in this particular case. That said, how can we all collectively try to find a solution here? And I think cities space a little bit to try to find space for outside dining. And if we can do that, that would be ideal to protect not just the people coming to the restaurant's feet, but also the waiters and the staff at the restaurants.
Tell me your take. Give me your take on multiplexes as well. That's the other really sore point. If I were to think about 2 or 3 key businesses which have just not been able to open for obvious reasons, restaurants is one and cinema halls would be the other. Dr. Ramanan, how do you look at that from a public policy sort of risk? Because in a lot of countries they have opened up. They are alternating seats, etc., doing a whole lot of other things. In our current situation, do you think it's a good idea to open these up?
See, the disease is spreading no matter what. The question is, in all of these activities, we're trying to slow down the spread. It's been clear that we cannot stop the spread. That was clear from 6 months ago in March. So everything, lockdown, everything that we're doing is only to slow down the spread so that we don't have too many cases on any given day. I think we just have to be pragmatic. The fact is that, if theaters are open, certainly you would do it so that there's only 20 or 30% capacity operating. I would imagine that that is still better than the movie theater not opening at all. But people have to realize that the highest risk from COVID comes from being in indoor spaces, and especially without a mask. I assume you can enforce mask wearing or shield wearing when you're in a movie hall. But I think we need to. But I think we need to be cognizant of the fact that that real life is not going to be what we had pre-COVID times. It's going to be a new kind of real life, just like we fly now with masks and face shields. We're going to have to do things like this if we're going to get into a movie theater. Let's be very clear about it. If we take those precautions, then we're reducing the risk. There is no such thing as zero risk against COVID, but there is no such thing as zero risk in life in general. So I think the question is how to minimize the risk, whether the multiplexes or in the restaurants.
Let me get your take on this, Riyaaz. More outdoor than indoor. I mean, maybe Delhi has space and the possibility of something like this, but in Mumbai, in the cities of Maharashtra, it may not really be feasible.
So Tamanna, while we are fully, we take on board the doctor's thoughts that indoors do pose a little bit more risk, but the fact of the matter is that we will be following the highest standards in safety. Currently, restaurants are operational for the last 2 months in other cities, and so far they have not been able to establish a link towards restaurants in terms of increase in infection, largely owing to restaurants. I mean, contact tracing is still going on. We are taking information of customers. We will be participating with the government in every way possible and maintain the highest standards of safety. We are very, very concerned for our employees as well. In fact, if you remember, we were the first ones to shut down even before the lockdown call came in. Restaurants took a call to shut down because we were worried about the safety of our employees. But we have been, following very, very stringent safety norms. We have reworked our air conditioning. We're using UV technology. We are disinfecting our surfaces. Groups are coming in together, groups of people who know each other, and they will be kept a certain distance apart. And we have been operating in other areas for a while. And things have not really been attached. You can't really say that, the restaurants have been a super spreader, and no one has reported that so far. We have to, open cautiously. Of course, we will all be very careful. And, I don't think customers are going to come rushing in either. It's going to take a while before customer confidence really, really peaks up. And I think before dining in becomes normalized, we will go through a pain for 3 months, 4 months, because we are not going to be making money hand over foot, but at least some degree of business will come back. And that is also very, very important. So we have to open up cautiously, and we will open up with as many precautions as we can humanly take. And yes, the government is contemplating allowing open air dining, and Maharashtra has, I think there are lots of places. Mumbai has a fabulous skyline. Pune has a lot of open spaces. And we are, the government is seriously considering restaurants to allow service in open areas, which will be best case scenario. But if we allow service in open areas, that gives us more space in our indoors. So it is definitely feasible. And we have to now start, getting back. Otherwise, if the virus doesn't get us, the economic slowdown will definitely get us. So we have to figure a way out through. And so far, there have been no links. We've been operational for 2 months, 2.5 months. There have been no direct links linked to restaurants so far.
Yeah. No, and I'm not claiming that there are, but the fact is that the more you open up, and it's not just restaurants, the more you open up, the more you risk, which has been happening anyway, as Dr. Ramanan has pointed out. Mr. Kohli, I want to understand the cost of compliance, especially for, smaller outfits, smaller restaurants, which are so many and which are the ones that feed the masses. I'm not talking, only about high-end, fine dine ones here, or with a lot of space, or with a lot of capability to implement all of these social distance norms and sanitation norms. Are these restaurants prepared for that cost of compliance?
See, Tamanna, actually, what is this extra compliance? This is actually, it's an added compliance. To think that we are alien to this is not right. Restaurants have been following the hygiene standards. Certain hygiene standards were being followed by restaurants even before the COVID came in. Use of sanitizers is not alien to us. They were being used in the kitchens, in the other places where utility places, etc. Now it's only gone up a bit. Yes, of course, with distancing norms and with extra hygiene, the cost will go up. But then that is what you have to. You have to take it in your stride. There is nothing else you can do about it. If you need to sanitize your place, you need to sanitize your place. So that's what a responsible establishment does. I cannot sit here and start cribbing and say my cost is going to go up, and that's why I will not be able to sustain. Well, no, there are cheaper options available, and everything doesn't have to be. It, it's of course a larger establishment will buy something that they think is better, and a smaller one will find its own way. I mean, 1% hypochlorite solution costs nothing; it costs 10 paise. So to say that there's going to, this is like a fear psychosis. Oh, it'll be really huge. The cost will be really huge, and we'll not be able to comply. No, what we will not be able to comply with is if we remain shut. 7 months of closure is what we cannot comply with, and we will be fighting that over the next year. To think that opening up with let's say a 50% capacity is that does not mean you'll start making money. As Riyaaz said, people are not going to jump inside your restaurant just because you opened it. So while we know that there's a lot of desperation, there's a lot of frustration sitting at home, 6 months, 7 months. Let's just throw it open and what we are forgetting here, and what everybody who talks to us forgets here, that we ourselves are there. We ourselves are there, present in our premises. We have our staff, that is our family, and we have our guests. This is the human factor we are dealing with. We cannot afford to be complacent. And we ourselves will see this, and we ourselves will ensure that compliances are there. So to imagine that it's a very immature industry, or to micromanage it, is something that I don't agree. And how long can you keep anything shut? See, people have taken COVID in their stride. Let's face the fact. They've accepted it. They've understood.
What has been the impact?
No, see, they've accepted it. They've understood the importance of hygiene.
What has been the impact?
Sorry? What do you? I can't hear you. Sorry, what did you say?
I was asking you, what has been the impact on the industry? What has been the impact on the industry of restaurants being shut for so long? I was mentioning a little earlier about some reports that suggest that many will just not make it, even if they're allowed to open now. A lot of restaurants may have already gone under. Is that something that you are seeing? Give us some idea of how huge this blow has been.
I'll tell you, even if you open today, if you were ready and you open today, I will say in a very conservative figure, at least 35% of restaurants will not start. They cannot start. They've already died. And we've been telling this from the first day itself, that do not shut this experiment. To think that restaurants are a hub, like even you said, that it's going to be the next hub. No, it's not right. So this impact is already there. The more you kept it shut, the more it increases. And I'm talking a very conservative figure. 30-35% restaurants will not be able to open. And if there are no guests coming in after we open also, you'll see, the mortality rate will rise.
Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting way to put it, the mortality rate of those in the business. Riyaaz, you want to come in on that, the kind of impact this all has had, and whether restaurants now opening up in, completely in the last phase, or the unlock 5.0 phase, will give many a fighting shot at survival?
I have to agree with Mr. Kohli. What we have seen, and the numbers which we have seen, is about 20% of restaurants will not reopen for sure. And honestly speaking, we are now be going into the frying pan, into the fire phase, because this is when our expenses will really start. In the next 4-5 months, with social distancing norms, is going to be really, really hard for the industry. So we are expecting a lot more to actually fall off during that period, and we will definitely need the government's help and intervention to try and make sure that restaurants don't go out of business. We are an employment powerhouse. A lot of livelihoods depend on our industry, and we are going to go through a tougher time in the coming months. So it will be rougher. So about 35% of restaurants, or maybe even more. Kohli sir may correct me, but I think about 40% of restaurants have not been able to renew their licenses also. So it's looking a little glum, but starting off really honestly is a tough bit, but it's the only way forward.
Well, I for one, and I'm sure many people watching are looking forward to the opportunity of going out and having a meal in a safe, socially distanced way. And I'm sure the way we have found a path to survive in so many places, found a new normal, there will be one here as well. We'll have to wait and see what those unlock norms are. We focus this evening on the restaurant business largely, but there's so much more that is expected to happen. Multiplexes are one, maybe some sort of an extension of educational facilities. Will there be some announcement on airlines, on international flights? We'll have to watch this space for more. But for now, I want to thank all of you for joining us on the first big story this evening on the India Development Debate.